All right, Rob. I love the mohawk. Is it still? It's hard to say in the dark there. Is it still got the rainbow going on it?
Yeah, still totally colored.
So I didn't plan this purposely, but it's Pride Month. I was in Houston up until early this morning. I got home, in the middle of the night, and they had insanity going on in downtown Houston. I mean, it was crazy. The
Yeah,
streets were packed. I mean, I don't know what was going on, but we drove for miles and it was just people everywhere.
that's awesome.
Is that normal? Is that what's going on all over?
Oh yeah, yeah. With June being Pride Month, I mean, there's Pride celebrations really going on all over the world, which is pretty cool. New York is actually hosting World Pride this year. That's going on this week and ends on Saturday. So there's literally people from all over the world flying into New York City to celebrate Pride, and yeah, that's been going on, like I said, for the past month.
So I was telling you beforehand, I'm just a curious person. So I have so many questions I want to ask you. You have two amazing avenues of your life that I want to dive, and I'm sure you have more that I don't know about. But I don't even know where to start. Let's just mix it all up. So I was thinking about this, and again, I told you, and anyone listening, you know that I love everybody, so I never mean to offend. But okay, I grew up wrestling, and the rule was, hey, no sex before competition.
Yep.
What's the rule amongst gay men in the world of competition? Does that rule hold true for you guys?
It doesn't hold true for us, and I don't think it holds true for any strongman competitor that I know.
So you guys, I mean, in the strongman world, regardless of preference, you guys are all having sex the night before. Is that an
Yeah, I
old?
mean, I also feel like that would distract me. Like if I have that like pent up sexual aggression, I feel like I wouldn't be able to focus on the event, and I'd just be thinking about that, and not actually performing. So
I think that was like an old Rocky, women weaken knees, and we kind of ran with it. So,
yeah,
so you're the 13th place finisher, this year's World's Strongest Man. I was telling you, I was doing some research, but they're a little bit behind the times when it comes to their site. I love watching the strongman competitions. I remember like Bill Kazmaier, the old school ones back in the day. What can you explain to the people listening? Because it's not just like an easy thing, like you show up. What's the season look like for you guys? So you say you came in 13th, but there's multiple qualifiers to get there, right? And then my other question is, there's like a ton of events. How do you know which ones you're going to have at each event?
yeah. So the way with strongman right now is there's really there's two big pro circuits in strongman right now. So there's Giants Live, which that is the qualifying tour for World's Strongest Man, and then there's also the Arnold. The Arnold Columbus is the Strongman World Championships, and then there's also the Arnold International events that happen throughout the year as well. So really at the top level of strongman, most guys are competing in both, which means we're all competing a lot. So I was actually down in Australia in March at the Arnold International in Australia, was actually fortunate enough to win that competition, which qualifies me for Columbus in 2020. And previously, before that, I had been doing some of the Giants Live shows to qualify for World's Strongest Man, which, fortunately I did. So I did the Arnold in March, and then 2 weeks later, I was actually in Leeds, England, competing at the Log Press World Championships. Where I was fortunate enough to, actually break the American Log Press record there.
What was that?
What was that?
What was the record, and what did you do to break
So
it?
previously, the record was 465 pounds on a log clean and press, and I successfully lifted 471. And I was also the lightest competitor there, which was pretty cool.
I know. I was asking my buddy Merle, for some questions for you. He loves you. He was in Bradenton
Yeah,
watching, and he was like, "What's it like being 150 pounds lighter?" I was like, "That must be a typo." And I was
it's
like, and I was researching. I was like, "You're like 298, and Thor was like 430."
I was actually lighter. I was around 280 this year at Worlds. Last year I was like 298, slimmed down a little bit, was a little bit more athletic this year, and stronger, which was great. But yeah, so I've been walking around about 280 for the past year. And yeah, I'm one of the lightest guys on the circuit. at this level, which is pretty cool.
So it sounds to me like it's similar to bodybuilding, almost similar to CrossFit too, where you have these competitions and you have to qualify to make it to the big stage. So Bradenton last weekend was the big stage. I feel like there's a disconnect because that's a huge event and I barely knew about it. Like World's Strongest Man needs to pick this up.
It's literally, like the Super Bowl of our sport. That competition is why we get into strongman. It's the one that we see on TV growing up as kids, and that's like the pinnacle. And it's tough because as much of a competition it's to the entities that own it. It is a TV show first, and a competition second, which from an athlete's point of view really sucks. And that's why there really wasn't much press and info about the event. I mean, hell, I got my ticket to fly down there 2.5 weeks before the contest started. So, really from all points of view, it was kind of a shit show to say the least. And this year they tried a new format, so typically World's Strongest Man in the past, there was 4 days of qualifying events, then there would be 2 days of rest, and then the finals would take place 6 events over 2 days. So it was really like almost a week and a half to 2 weeks of competing. This year, we had 3 days of qualifying. And then on the 4th day, we went right straight into the finals with 5 events in 1 day, which typically strongman competitions are 1 or 2 day events with 5 to 6 events per contest. But with Worlds, it's, the tough part about Worlds is like it gets drawn out so long because of TV. And it's just emotionally draining to try to like stay on all day. And, and then they tell you to warm up and then like, oh, no, wait, sorry, production has to do something. Let's wait another half an hour. So it's just all these up and downs.
So a lot of the listeners are going to be CrossFitters listening to this. What's bigger, CrossFit or strongman?
CrossFit.
Is it bigger these days?
By far. So like World's Strongest Man, this is the first year that we've been in the U.S., since I think 2014 or 2015. And, in 2016 and 2017, we were in Botswana. And
I don't even know where that is.
Yeah, it's in Africa. And then in 2018, we were in the Philippines. My first year was 2017. And if we had maybe 20 people watching each event, that was a big crowd. And kind of the same deal in the Philippines. But being in the U.S. this year, we had probably 300 to 500 people in attendance for each event, which is big for World's Strongest Man. When you look at the contest in England, though, so I'm actually going over to compete at Wembley Stadium in 3 weeks.
That's a big deal. Where Queen played their big show.
So we're going to be competing at Wembley in 2 weeks, and we're going to be competing in front of like 12 to 15,000 people.
That's
so
really
over in the UK. Strongman is massive. But I don't think it's really like kind of grasped that mainstream attention here in the U.S.
Yeah. For those that don't know Bradenton, it's not the biggest town, right? I mean, there wasn't much to do there. I mean, I've been to CrossFit Bradenton, so I know the area. Who was your strongman idol growing up?
For me, ironically, it's actually the guy who's my coach now, Derek Poundstone. I had always watched the stuff on TV and seeing Bill Kazmaier, Magnus Samuelsson, Magnus for Magnus, and all those guys. And that was really cool. But, it wasn't until I was like 16 years old. I was in high school and I saw World's Strongest Man. And that's the year that Derek actually took second place. I was living in Connecticut, saw he was from Connecticut and kind of made that connection, thought it was really cool. And once I saw that kind of going on, that's when I got the motivation to really start training a little bit harder and get into the sport.
I don't feel like it's a sport you can just be like, I want to get into. You obviously have to be genetically, it doesn't matter what I tell you, I will never be a World's Strongest Man. You're genetically predisposed. You're a big guy. But
yes and no. I mean, arguably, I would say I'm probably the least genetically gifted one at Worlds. Looking back, I'm only 5'10". I'm not tall. And, compared to all the other guys that I compete with. And like I said, I'm like 280 pounds. When I was in high school, I was walking around about 200 pounds. So I really wasn't like a terribly big kid growing up. I'm just really stubborn and wanted to be good at the sport.
Well, I'm going to give you a reference. I was 91 pounds in high school.
Oh, that's cute.
So you were two of me. Now, but at what point did you realize, hey, I am pretty strong? Like, were you the kid in high school? Like, I remember the kid in my high school that was just like the strong football player that could squat 315. Were you that guy?
Yeah, like in high school, like, I was pretty strong. Like I think my senior year I was squatting around 400 pounds. My deadlift was up around 5. And that was really just with like the football, coach training. It wasn't like formal training. And like ironically, I actually got into strongman because of CrossFit. There was a substitute teacher at my high school who noticed me like weight lifting in the gym one afternoon, said I was, decently strong and I should start training with him. So I'd actually go to a CrossFit box at like 5 o'clock in the morning before school. And they would coach me and like teach me the basics and kind of break down all my form. I really sucked at CrossFit, but I was good at the strongman, at like the lifting stuff. And one day I walked in and they were like, hey, by the way, there's a strongman contest this weekend we signed you up for. And I
What
had never tried anything.
what box was that?
So I don't believe it's around anymore, but it was Southeastern Connecticut CrossFit, kind of in the Norwich, Connecticut area. So yeah, like I said, I was going there, before school, and that's kind of where I got my start into strongman.
CrossFit, I believe, has been integral in the growth of Olympic weightlifting. Would you say the same is true for strongman?
Yeah, totally. Like especially look at the games and like there's at least one strongman movement in every single games the past couple years. They're having yokes, they're having the big, the heavy balls, they're going over the shoulder. They're doing farmers walks, axle, they're using axle bars. So kind of seeing that integrated into the mainstream is awesome, and I think that's what's cool. Strongman has definitely grown in the past couple of years and it's getting more popular. And I think that's because people are realizing you don't have to be these massive giants to be competitive, that there's this entire lower, like this amateur circuit. And now there's actually there's pro divisions at the lighter weight classes as well. So, like you can be just a, quote unquote, normal sized human and not be one of these massive guys and still be involved in the sport and competing.
Can we make it clear that 280 is not a normal sized human, though? That's not normal for
I
the.
feel like it is since I'm so small compared to all my friends.
Who, in your opinion, what CrossFit athlete would make the best transition to strongman?
Sam Dancer.
Yeah, he. Yeah,
I think it'd be pretty easy for him. The guy deadlifts, close to 700 pounds now.
you you think he can come and just hang, or you think he'd have to spend a couple of years training the specific lifts?
I don't think it would be a couple. I would say give it like 9 to 12 months, and I think he could do pretty well.
The questions. Let me go through a couple of the questions that Merle asked because they're a little specific to the recent competition.
Yeah.
What's your biggest weakness going forward as you're preparing for the next season, or England, like you said? What lifts do you have to work on?
For me, it's still glaring. Truck pulls and keg tosses are my two weakest events. And that, I trained my ass off for the truck pull going into Worlds this year and really thought I was going to do well on it. And that just didn't happen when it came time to compete. And, kind of same thing with the throwing events. It's they've always just kind of been a weakness of mine. So those are the two big things moving forward that I'm really going to focus on over this next year. I have a bunch of more competitions planned, but with my coach and everything, we're kind of planning out how to really hammer those weaknesses while I'm still competing.
In the CrossFit world, you're familiar. You have to be ready for anything. The people that are qualifying have no idea what they're going to face in Madison in August, but you have an idea. How many options are there? How many different events are there? I was looking on the World Strongest Man. There seems to be like 20.
There's actually a lot more because there's variations of each lift, right? So when we're looking at just the overhead, for example, we can be using a log, an axle, a barbell, dumbbell, or a block. So there's 5 implements right there. It could be a medley of a few different implements to go through for, do 1 rep on each as fast as possible. It could be 1 implement to clean and press for max reps in a certain time limit. It could be for a 1 rep max. So there's options with each implement. and then there's going to be carrying events. So you're going to have sandbags or kegs or yokes or farmers, or Husafeld stones. So there's deadlifts. So we can do a front handle car deadlift. We could do a side handle car deadlift. We could do, an axle deadlift where the bar doesn't bend. There's always going to be Atlas stones. So we could do those for a series or for reps or for height sometimes. So there's just so many variations upon every single different, exercise that, I think it's hard to count the options that we have.
So when do you find out what events you're going to face at each competition?
Typically, we get about 8 to 12 weeks. With World's Strongest Man, we were given 2 days.
So you're basically training for everything, but you have an idea. So I need to be good at going overhead. I clearly need to deadlift. I have to practice my carry. So is your programming done by Derek, and does it just kind of include all of that? And then when you show up, you've at least practiced it in the past?
Yeah, this year before Worlds, about 6 weeks before, we were told there was going to be a truck pull. So we were certain about that event.
Do you have a truck that you pull, like outside?
I became really good friends with the firefighters in town.
So you just hey, I need to borrow the truck. Hopefully there's no calls.
Yeah, they were awesome about it. They thought it was cool. So I got to practice for the truck pull a couple of times. We got a list of about 9 to 12 events that they were going to choose from, but we didn't get the event specifics until 2 days before the contest. And that's when we found out. So in that list of 9 to 12 events, we found out there was going to be yokes and farmers. Okay. Looking back historically, the heaviest yoke Worlds has ever done is about 1,000 pounds. And then we show up and we find out there's actually a 1,300 pound yoke that we're going to have to do as well. So that was a big shock to everybody.
Does weight move weight? That old kind of expression.
I beat Thor in that event, so I guess deciding factor on that.
That's true. You would think though, on the pull, you can lean into it. So, you're at a slight disadvantage.
When it comes to truck pulls and stuff like that, yeah, I think weight does move weight. To a certain extent, guys that are bigger than me, they can kind of throw technique out the window and rely on, the extra 150 pounds of body weight they have. But when it comes to events, like farmers or a yoke or even static lifts, the weight moves weight argument kind of goes out the window a little bit because it's less about momentum and more about just, technique and raw strength.
So what makes you so good at the log press?
I split jerk. I'm actually the only guy at this level that utilizes a split jerk to go overhead when it's heavy. I have a really good push press. I can still push press over 400 pounds. But when it comes time to going for a 1 rep max, yeah, I use a split jerk, and I credit that to my CrossFit background.
Do you realize how strong you are? Is that something you understand? I talk to a lot of great coaches and people, and I feel like they're just that you're humble and you're just that's normal. This is not normal to push press 400 pounds.
It's yes and no. I get that I'm strong, but to me, I haven't reached my goal, so I'm still not strong enough.
Okay. Hey, what are your goals? What's a goal that you're striving to achieve?
One that I still haven't reached, my goal training for World's Strongest Man this year was to be top 10 in the world. And I just missed that this year. With the way Worlds was set up, I was in second place. And so the way with World's Strongest Man, all the athletes are split up into 5 qualifying groups, and only the top 2 go through to the finals. I was fortunate enough to have Thor, the Mountain, in my group. And I actually only lost to him by 1 point in the qualifiers. That 1 point equated to 1 placing higher on the truck pull or him going 2 seconds slower on another event. And then had that had happened, I would have won the group and I would have beaten him and made the finals. But I had huge improvements from 2018, so I'm really not too upset with my performance at Worlds. But I didn't reach my goal of top 10. So for 2020, the goal is, break into the finals and stir some things up. In talking with my coach, he thinks top 5 really isn't out of the question. So that's kind of what I'm gunning for in 2020 is top 5 at World's Strongest Man. And then also at the Arnold in March is, top 5 finish there as well, which is considered to be the heaviest strongman contest on the planet.
I have a lot of games athletes, CrossFit games athletes on here, and they're pretty honest in their assessment of like, I don't think I'm going to win. There are people that are showing at Matt Frazier, Tia, to win. Is it similar in strongman? Are you going there like top tens in that's what I can achieve this year? Like I'm not actually looking to podium.
Yeah. But that's how I've been my entire strongman career. Like when I started this sport 10 years ago, when I was 17 years old, I sucked. I wasn't good. Like I took dead last in the first 8 competitions I did.
But dead last is still qualifying. It's like the worst CrossFit Games athlete is still better than anyone else.
Oh, well, when I was 17, I was literally like at the amateur level, like taking last place. So I wasn't even like a threat to anything.
Okay.
And then, about a year and a half later was when I qualified for my first amateur national championships. So I was like, okay, getting better. I kind of went to the amateur national championships competing under 200 pounds at that time. So that was 2011. And kind of surprised everybody and ended up taking second place my first time there. And then 2013, I won the lightweight open division, which is 231 and under at the amateur national championship. And that's when I turned pro officially in 2013. And then 2016 is when I made my transition to going heavyweight full time and competing at this level. And to be honest, like even when I started competing heavyweight, I didn't know if getting to World's Strongest Man was something I could do. It wasn't until I, was fortunate enough to compete at the Arnold in South Africa, and I did pretty well there. I took 6th place, and that kind of got the notice of the World's Strongest Man people, and they gave me a wild card invite to World's Strongest Man in 2017.
Now, how many calories would you say you eat on a given day?
So a big training day, if I'm being good and following what I need to do, is about 8,000. And then like a non-training day, again, if I'm following it, is around 5.
So 8,000, is that your husband behind you, by the way?
Yeah, that's John.
So 8,000 calories, I assume you're having some foods that are a little fun in there. It's hard to eat 8,000 calories of fruits and vegetables.
Yeah, no, it's, that's kind of the nice thing about strongman is we're not training for aesthetics. So,
but you look good. I mean, you look good.
Yeah, not bad.
The transition into, I'm 41, so back probably 20 years ago when I would watch on ESPN, they were just fat.
Yeah.
And then there was a slow transition. I forget the first guy, but I was like, that guy's got abs.
Mariusz Pudzianowski is like the first one that comes to mind.
Yeah, it might have been him, yeah.
But, like with strongman, like at the end of the day, like I usually do my training later in the day. And like the last thing I want to do is come home and eat like 3 different meals to get all my calories in. So sometimes I'll just stop and get a pint of Ben & Jerry's to cover 2 of those meals.
What's your go-to Ben & Jerry's flavor?
Oh, see, I switch it up. That's the thing. So like I'll go with like the Tonight Dough or Half Baked.
Oh, Half Baked is the best. Yeah.
But like now I'm kind of on this kick of the peanut butter fudge core.
Oh yeah, that stuff in the middle there. Yeah.
Real. So that's been like my go-to lately.
All right. So my wife and I fight a lot about food because we track our macros. We eat each other's food. What's it like, 2 men? Are you guys battling over food? Especially, I've seen pictures of Joey. He's a strong-looking guy, but he's not your size.
No, right? No. He walks around at like 185.
Yeah, so you got 100 pounds on him.
Yeah, and it's funny because like he's actually really good with like following a nutrition plan in his diet.
He's not going to be mad. He's listening in right now.
No, so he's heating up one of his meals right now.
Joey, you're okay with this, right?
I'm totally the bad influence on this. Because I'll be like sitting around and be like, I mean, come on, we can just get some ice cream.
Hey, could Joey join us for a minute?
Yeah.
Joey, can you join us for a second?
Sure.
So, I mean, it feels like out of nowhere, you guys got married in what, March, was it?
Yeah.
And then it was like blowing up everywhere, like World's Strongest Gay, you guys, like pictures of you guys kissing. Like, it was just awesome to see this blowing up. What, take me through. What was it like for you guys? How was your wedding? And was it exciting to share with the world?
So it was funny. The wedding, so we've actually been engaged since like December of 2016. So we've been engaged for a while. And
I had to pull that off. I had to get married right away. As soon as I got engaged, I was getting married.
Well, it was, just like financially, we just like initially we were thinking about doing like the whole big traditional wedding, and it just couldn't pull it together. So about a month or so before we left to go to Australia for my competition, Joey was just like, "Why don't we just get married there?"
Yeah, because the great picture is you guys with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, that was not. I wasn't even thinking about any of that because we started planning in January, and we're like, well, more so my mom was like, "Oh, why don't you go somewhere like tropical and do it?" And I'm like, I don't know if I'd want to do an island. And I'm like, why not do it when he's already going to be in Australia? I'm like, Australia's cool. Like I've always wanted to go there.
The weather was perfect. It was like 80 degrees and sunny, so we got married on a cliff overlooking the beach, and then Arnold got to celebrate with us after the wedding.
I mean, that's pretty cool. We had Chuck Carswell at our wedding, who's a big deal in CrossFit, but he's no Arnold Schwarzenegger. And I love Chuck. So, but when you get married in Australia, do you have to do anything different because we live in the States?
No, they actually, since gay marriage is legal over there, the U.S. recognizes the marriage certificate from Australia. So,
so I mean, regardless, I mean, anyone can get married in Australia, and it still is legal in the United States. Yeah, because we had to fill stuff out. We got married in California. Roz handled everything. So while you're both here, so when did you guys meet?
Oh God, we met in August of 2014.
Where was it?
The millennial love story online.
What kind of site? Like the only
on Grindr.
Yeah, I was gonna say the only site I know for gay people is Grindr.
Yeah.
Now, but to me, when I hear that word, that's like a hookup site. That's not what.
Totally.
Oh, really? So how do you transition? Like is it like a swipe right, swipe left, like a Tinder?
No, it's just like a bunch of pictures of a bunch of guys, and you click on them if you want to talk to them.
Yeah.
I mean, I've said this before. If I was gay, I would be very promiscuous. Like, I would be right? Like, so when you guys connect, was it like, hey, we're just going to hook up and that's it? And then it blossoms into a real thing?
I think that might be what we were both looking for, being on that app. Joey was fresh out of undergrad. I had just finished my first year of grad school. I actually wasn't even out yet. I was still trying to figure out my whole situation.
In 2014, you said?
Yeah. So we actually just talked. We just texted for almost 3 weeks before we even went on our first date.
So that's different than you swiped, hey, come over tonight.
Yeah, totally.
Building.
No,
because obviously no one on Grindr is like a big beefy dude. I'm like,
well, I was gonna say, did you
what is this in Western Massachusetts out of nowhere?
Is dating someone like Rob the equivalent of me dating a really muscular woman? What is that like? You show up and you're like, what the this guy's
typically in the gay community, there's not a lot of guys that are big, because being gay, it's the stereotypical you have to be, if you're gay, you're feminine, and you just you don't do any masculine sports like that. And I was like, oh, that's interesting, because I played sports, but there wasn't that many gay people that I knew that played sports. So that's kind of what drew me to him.
That's a stereotype that's completely. But prior to Rob, I had a guy named Nunu Costa. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He's the world's fastest gay. Hey, I'm the only podcast that has the world's fastest and strongest. That's pretty cool. I need to get I don't know what's next, but world's most gymnastics gay. But so I haven't put his episode up, but he's strong in the CrossFit world. He's 180 front squatting nearly 400 pounds. So I think that he's much leaner, just a smaller framed person. But you're seeing that change, aren't we? Do you think you're gonna be the catalyst for a revolution of gay men being I can be strong?
That's kind of been our entire goal. When I first broke the amateur log press record at the Arnold in 2015, Joey came up with this idea to start the hashtag breaking the stereotype. And we've kind of used that throughout the past few years. And that's just to kind of redefine the narrative of what people think gay is, and change people's perception. Honestly, still to this day, the amount of times that I walk around and people see a ring on my finger, they're like, oh, what's your wife's name? It's really awkward when I have to say, well, his name is Joey.
But I think I'm just naive, because I'm just I don't know. I say this would love, like, I don't care. Like, like, everyone's entitled to, like, do people, I said the same thing to Nunu. I'm like, it's probably because I'm not involved in the community. So I don't see that. And because my personality is like, hey, I want to talk to Rob and talk to no different than it would be if you're married to a woman. Is
Yeah.
it, you know, so it's still out there. In other words, it's not changed.
Sure.
It's improved, but it's not where we want it to be.
No, and I mean, I still like. I mean, on my social media, like, I still get negative comments and messages, literally,
Really?
on a daily basis.
It's what Joe Rogan says. 10% of people are crazy.
Yeah,
So you just have to ignore those people.
yeah.
Yeah. So is there more pressure on you in the strongman world because of this?
To be honest, no. Like, ever since I came out, like, all of my friends and everybody that we compete with have been awesome. Like, they've accepted me. Like, they've like everybody. If I go to a contest and Joey isn't there, the first thing they say isn't, "Oh, hey Rob." It's, "Oh, where's Joey?"
Even Thor, is he like, where's Joey?
Just like that.
You know, so it's you know, there really hasn't been much pressure. I think us just being visible and kind of like open with our, you know, like showing the world our relationship like we have, has kind of just instilled like a lot of positivity and love in the community. And like, you know, it's really not a second thought to most people, which is great.
Yeah, I think I'm hopeful that, you know, it continues to pick up and grow. Tell, as someone that's never come out, can you talk to me about that? What is that like? I mean, it's hard. I know Nunu told me about him, but what's that like?
For me,
What did you say, Joey?
I said it's hard to put into words.
Let's try.
I'll talk about my experience first. You know, I'm lucky because I didn't come out till I was 22, and Joey and I were already dating at that point. And I think I was just at the point in life where I was just like, you know what, this is me, this is it. I'm going to tell the world, and if people won't like it, then they can fuck off. And I really didn't care, to be honest. So I wasn't afraid of rejection. I didn't really have that fear. You know, fortunate for me, you know, like both of my parents were super excited for me and happy, and, you know, welcomed Joey in with open arms. And, you know, coming out for me, it was just, you know, for me to be able to say, you know, this is finally me. I'm happy with who I am. And that was really it. And, you know, most of the comments that I got were super positive and loving. And, you know, there were a few people that, you know, obviously, you know, talk shit, but that's going to happen with any good news that anybody has regardless. So, I'm fortunate on that, you know, coming out, because like I said, I just don't really I don't think I cared much about what other people thought.
You know, it's funny. I'm like 41, and once you hit 40, you get like these emotional things going on inside of you. And I'm like, I'm getting emotional listening, because I'm just like, why? I wouldn't want anyone to not be able to be who they are. So it's awesome to hear that. Like, you know, I couldn't imagine not being able to be me. So it's awesome, you know, really amazing to hear that your family was supportive. Were they like, we know, Rob?
Yeah, my mom definitely knew when I asked if I could be a cheerleader in 7th grade. I know that's stereotypical, and she also said, you know, I kind of knew when you were 7 years old and dancing to Cher with your lesbian aunt in the driveway. So that was a big hint. And then my dad, I was definitely a little intimidated to tell my dad, because, you know, we're originally from Brooklyn, New York.
Oh yeah,
Irish Catholic dude, kind of a hard ass, but also super sarcastic. And, you know, so I tell him, I'm like, you know, starting to cry, and I tell him that I'm gay, and he looks at me without skipping a beat, says, "So can I still say gay jokes?"
Yeah.
You know, and, you know, like, I literally have like tears running down my face. I was like, "That's what you're worried about?" He's like, "Yeah, I don't care."
So when you knew you were gay, would your dad ever make like a joke and you like have to bite your tongue?
After I came out, or before?
No, prior to that.
Not really. Not that I can think of anyway.
Yeah. But it's probably like, you know, I grew up Jewish, and it's like people make Jewish jokes. I'm like, I don't care. Like, yeah. I know who like, it's all, especially when it's your buddy. It's like, it's your buddies. Like, you know, it's coming from a good place versus people online that are just trying to be assholes. Exactly. Joey, what's it like as he's getting ready for a competition? So I talked to a lot of CrossFitters, and, you know, one thing I tell them is I sleep in the same bed as my wife, and we'll kick each other and wake each other up accidentally. And it's so important to get a good night's sleep, I'm sure, before a strongman event, just like it is before CrossFit. Do you guys share a bed the night before a competition, or do you like sleep separate so he can have his space and be ready? And what's it like supporting him? I'm sure he's crazy getting ready for a competition.
I mean, we do sleep in the same bed. I don't notice anything different. He passes out faster than I do, so I don't really think sleep in the same bed like hinders it. But he gets like super serious like right before a contest, and like I can totally tell because things around the house will start like dwindling, and I'm like, oh, like did you do the dishes, or like just small things, and like all of a sudden things are piling up, and I'm just doing everything, and he's like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm just like so focused, and I'm like, okay, but you need to help me. So
I love it.
The only that changes is he's just so serious, and like it's like a light switch.
Yeah, it turns into strongman 100% of the time.
And do you have to be like, hey, like spend some time with me, quality time?
He puts me in check. He doesn't have a problem doing that.
Yeah.
Have you guys done the love languages?
The what?
No.
Oh my God, you guys have to do that. There's a book. It's got a little bit of religious undertone, so be prepared for that. But
Okay.
The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman. It's a great, great book. So we each have our own love languages. So mine is physical touch. And that, granted, I like to have sex with my wife, but it's also just like, hey, pat me on the butt, like that type of stuff. And she loves acts of service. So when I don't do the dishes, that's her love language. So really cool to understand that. So I would definitely check it out.
That's good. Yeah, that sounds.
Joey, Rob strikes me as someone that snores really loud. Is that true?
I feel like I snore more than he does.
He just because he's such a big dude. Does he snore a lot?
He doesn't really snore a lot. He like I don't even know if it's like sleep paralysis, but it's like that in between where he sleeps and then he'll shake and like jerk and like,
I twitch.
He like hits me sometimes, and I'm like, what is happening? But no, he doesn't snore loud. I'm more of a snorer than he is.
Is there pressure from Rob to do strongman stuff?
Like to do like contests and stuff?
Yeah, is that what you do for your own training?
I mean, I'm kind of just go on the bandwagon because I saw him do strongman obviously before we even really got to know each other, and I just played soccer and ran track, so I basically just would run all the time because I didn't really know what I was doing lifting weights until he showed me. And then I got caught up into the strongman world, and I've done a couple of competitions.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so I'm doing one at the end of July, which...
He also does CrossFit, though, as well.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah? What box do you go to?
CrossFit Aspirations. It's obviously in Massachusetts.
Very cool. Oh, well, this is all. I can ask a billion questions. I love learning. I love talking to people. But let me ask you a few more strongman questions because Merle will be mad at me if I don't ask you a couple more before we wrap up. But thank you, Joey. What did Derek Poundstone do differently when he trained you that prepped World Strongman versus what you were doing prior?
So the thing with us is, I came off a really shitty 2018 for a competition season and realized I needed to change a bunch of things. So, after I competed, my last contest was in June of 2018. I got hurt. I had a 275-pound Atlas stone fall on my chest, broke 3 ribs and tore a muscle in my back. And that was kind of like my low where I was like, all right, things need to change. So I reached out to Derek, hired him as my coach, started working with a nutrition company, started getting weekly massages, like really just amped up everything. And, the first thing Derek said was, you're strong, but, we need to up that volume a little bit. So he put me through a 3-month volume and work capacity phase. That was by far the hardest 12 weeks of my life. I would have some workouts took me like almost 4 hours to complete. And that's like, and I wasn't like bullshitting during them either. It was just like, there was that much stuff that had to get done, and he crushed me. And I like, to this day, the hardest workout I've ever gone through. One of the things Derek changed is he has me squat and deadlift on the same day and heavy.
Your low back is just done at the end of that day, right?
So a great example of that is actually my workout today. I have to work up to, a set of 5 at like 700 on back squat. Okay. And then I have to do, so at my next contest at Wembley, it's also the deadlift world championships. So the direct quote was a few sets of singles or doubles at 880 on deadlift. So, that's my typical like squat and deadlift day, just super heavy. And then after that, he threw in a medley of yoke carries and sandbag carries. So it was a 700-pound yoke, a 225-pound sandbag, and I had to carry each of them 100 feet, rest 90 seconds, and repeat that 4 times. And, as a gay man, it was my first time when I had my come to Jesus moment. I mean, I have never been in so much pain. I couldn't breathe. I mean, it's, New England in August, so the weather's not great. It's humid and hot. And, I mean, it was like after that 4th set, I mean, I didn't know if I needed to like lay down, sit up, like shit myself, puke, cry. I didn't know what needed to happen.
I mean,
you're doing out-of-body experience.
Yeah, and you're doing CrossFit just with incredibly heavy weights for the most part. I mean, it's all the same. It's all, functional movements. CrossFit athletes are notoriously pretty beat up. I've had games athletes on that are like their bodies are beat. What does your body feel like
on a normal day?
Yeah, just like any given day. Do you wake up like, oh my, like how am I going to stand up tall? How am I going to sit on this toilet?
Yeah. I mean, the way I usually describe it is like you feel like I got hit by a truck every day.
Every day.
I mean, when you look at what we do, like in training so heavy so often, like your central nervous system just doesn't have time to recover. That's why I love the 10 days leading into a contest because I don't have to
tapering.
Do shit.
Yeah. Do you actually take like, is it tapering or do you actually take 10 days off?
I pretty much take 10 days off.
Oh, well, I just eat 8,000 calories, eat Ben and Jerry's. That sounds like the life.
I'll eat a little bit cleaner during those 10 days because I'm not burning as much and I don't want to, look like a sloppy, bloated piece of shit when I show up to the contest. But yeah, I mean, it's really just maybe I'll do 1 or 2 workouts, but they're pretty much just like bodybuilding based. So I'm not taxing the nervous system, still recovering. I'll get in the pool a little bit and swim. But really it's just those 10 days are like crucial for my body to just like not feel like crap.
Do you envision post strongman getting involved in CrossFit, or would you go back to a bodybuilding type of routine? What do you think you'll do?
I don't know. I mean, fortunately, like I'm only 27, so those thoughts haven't crossed my mind. I'm on the opposite end of those thoughts. Because I actually I just left my job and I'm committed to doing strongman full time now as my career. So like when it comes to training, it's probably going to end up just more being like that barbell bodybuilding style training after my strongman career is over.
Well, I'd love to see you do CrossFit. If you've never done your level 1, I highly recommend it one day, but we talk about fitness. And I actually gave this lecture on Saturday, and the example I always use is Eddie Hall. So we talk about, how if you're really good on one end, you typically lack capacity on the other end. And I always say, Eddie Hall pulled 500 kilograms in that documentary. It's like 1,100 pounds. And then the same documentary, he struggled walking up a flight of stairs.
Yep.
But it sounds like you are doing a pretty good job with maintaining cardiorespiratory stamina. I mean,
that's one of the things that I pride myself on is being one of the lighter guys. I mean, like statically I'm strong relatively, but where I make up a lot of points and a lot of room in these contests is on the medleys and the conditioning events, because I'm only carrying 280 pounds as opposed to their 400 pounds. I can move quicker. My transitions are better. I catch my breath a little bit easier. So when it comes to like conditioning stuff, I tend to be pretty good and I stay up with that.
Very cool. So I ask every guest that I have on the same question. I always ask if you have a book recommendation that the listeners can check out.
To be honest, not really.
All right, that's fair.
It's a meathead answer, I know, but
so sometimes I send that question early because a lot of people are like, I don't read so much, but I have one for you. Check out those love languages.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to check that out.
It was a game changer in a previous relationship, and then I use it all the time. So this was really awesome. Anything that I missed that you wanted to share? This is primarily CrossFitters. Anything you wanted to share with them?
No, I mean, the biggest thing, I think, with CrossFit especially is, the one thing I love so much about the CrossFit community is their willingness to learn about, so many different things. So, kind of, especially in the strongman world, we're actually seeing a lot of CrossFitters jump into these like novice strongman contests. So if anybody's interested or in the New England area, feel free to reach out and hop in and do this stuff. It's a lot of fun. And who doesn't like to lift heavy shit every once in a while?
Yeah, I mean, so I took Rob Orlando's. Do you know Rob Orlando?
Yeah.
So I took his inaugural seminar back before it was CrossFit, a CrossFit seminar, and we bought all these stones and yokes and the Roosevelt, and the women at the box loved it.
Yeah.
And we have a girl there, the box that I sold. Her name's Kat Toniati, and I think in the amateur division, she's like one of the best in the world now. And it was just incredible to see this woman. She was heavier at the time, shrink, but get so strong, and just it's fun watching. I like watching men lift, but it's more fun to watch women that never lifted and just come in and realize what they can do with their bodies.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And the best part about strongman is the community is a lot like CrossFit, where it's like, we want everybody to succeed regardless. So we're lucky to be in, arguably the only two sports where you're competing against somebody but cheering them on at the same time. And that's the beautiful thing about strongman. It's, it looks super intimidating from the outside looking in as this hyper masculine, scary sport with a bunch of big dudes lifting up a bunch of weight. But at the end of the day, like, my best friends are in this sport. And like I said, I'm competing against them, but I'm also cheering them on to do their best. So that's the best thing. And that's where you can draw the parallels between CrossFit and strongman.
Absolutely. This was awesome. Please tell Joey I said, to have a great rest of the day. You enjoy your half-baked tonight.
Oh, I definitely will.
Isn't it great when you're digging through the half-baked and you get one of those brownies?
Oh, and it's a
magic.
Yeah.
Yeah. So good.
I'll eat it after my deadlifts tonight.
Well, good luck with those deadlifts. I think your squat is my total, actually, now that I think about it. So that's pretty, I guess is what it is. But this was really great. I'm gonna actually try to get this up sooner than later, because I didn't realize I didn't coordinate it purposely during Pride Month, but I'd really like to I'm gonna try to get you and Nunu up.
That'd be awesome.
The end of June, and this has just been so amazing. I'm happy to talk to you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Rob.
You got it.